Coach's Corner. I am your host, Coach as always, and we are back with a new episode of Coach's Corner, episode 34, 33. We're in the 30s. That's the point of the topic there. But we have a lot of sports over the weekend. We have a lot of football to get into. So we'll just go ahead and hit the ground running with some quick reactions that one thought that I have from college football and one thought that I have from the NFL. And I'll start off with the NFL thought. And I'll just go off the first game that we saw because, I recorded before Kansas City played Detroit. Travis Kelce was out. I have to preface it that way. But I think it's time to say that the Lions are a legitimate team. And I know that a lot can change week to week. We can go to this, Detroit Seahawks game this upcoming week and basically eliminate, if the Lions lose, we can eliminate everything that I'm saying right now. But I don't think that's going to happen. And here's why. I think that the Lions played a complete game of football. And it wasn't a beautiful game. No game was aesthetically like the best game that we've seen ever. Because even if you look at the Chargers and Dolphins, awesome game. 30-something to 30-something. Dolphins ended up winning that game. And even then, you can point to the defenses and be like, the defenses was terrible in that. Because Tyreek Hill ran crazy. Justin Herbert was, rolling up and down the field. So the defenses weren't sharp for either team until the end when the Dolphins got a critical stop on Justin Herbert. But that doesn't, mean that, they're going to continue being that way, that all the games are going to continue being bad. Bad football is just upon us. No, I think we're going to get some more correction, some better offensive, defensive, type games. But the Lions, I think, played perhaps the most complete game on offense and defense because their offense moved the ball well. They moved up and down the field, not at will, but they moved it and got to the red zone multiple times, especially the one late in the game when David Montgomery rushed in, what would be the game-winning touchdown. He did that. And, I don't know if they used Jahmyr Gibbs as much as they would like to, this was the plan for Jahmyr Gibbs to bring it along slowly, but I think there's something there. I think they did draft a good player, obviously, maybe too high, but they drafted a good player that I think can be useful for them this season. And Jared Goff didn't, put the Lions in harm's way, which is something that people have been kind of, I guess, critical about him. It's like, can Jared Goff win you games? And I think he can. I think he proved that he can. He went on the road in a hostile environment on ring night for the Kansas City Chiefs and beat Patrick Mahomes. If you just use that sentence, that's a very good sentence. It's a very good resume that Jared Goff now has for this season. It's one game in, but it still happened. And, their special teams early on, they got a fake punt, first down on it was 4th and 2 from their own 15-yard line. So already insane play to call there, but special teams came through. They got that first down, and then their defense. I mean, obviously you could chalk up the the offensive woes of the Chiefs to them not having Travis Kelce and Kadarius Toney walking around with butter nubs on his hand. But that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to give some credit to the Lions defense because I thought they played very well in not allowing Patrick Mahomes to get into a true rhythm. He had his moments, obviously, because he's Patrick Mahomes, but it never felt like he had that true, he was not marching up and down the field with ease. It was always Aiden Hutchinson was a little bit in his face, or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, one of their acquisitions, was around the ball whenever it was thrown downfield. And for that reason, like I said, I think that the Lions played the most complete game in the most impressive fashion against a very, very solid Chiefs team. I just don't think it's going to be a top 2 seed in the AFC. So I feel like the Lions silently kind of won week 1. It kind of gets mopped away because, they played Thursday and then we had all the craziness on Sunday. But that game, I think, was a very big win for the Lions franchise, a good step in the right direction for them. And, I liked what they did. It was super impressive. And now, my one college football thought is kind of along the similar lines, but this time plug in the Texas Longhorns because they played an unbelievable game on the road in one of the most hostile environments you can get. And admittedly, I think that the Alabama Crimson Tide are not good. For Alabama Crimson Tide standards, I had to let that one sit a little bit. I just don't think that this team, we've seen in the past couple of years that Alabama, I think, has become more undisciplined than they ever have been under Nick Saban. Last year, they were that same way against Texas, but they managed to squeak out with the win because they have Bryce Young on their team. This time, they did that similar. They had a very similar type game, but they didn't have Bryce Young on their side. They had Jalen Milroe, who, unbelievable athlete, but he's not a good quarterback. Let's be honest here. And it's one of those. I think if he was at like Louisville, I think he would be a monster at Louisville. I think he would destroy records, or maybe not records because Lamar Jackson went there, but Jalen Milroe would thrive at Louisville. He would thrive at Nebraska, Georgia Tech, where I don't think the pressure of being the Alabama quarterback is there. Therefore, he'd play a lot more loose. In kind of a similar fashion of how Bo Nix has been, Oregon is a better team than Auburn was, like, ever during Bo Nix's time. But, it feels like Bo Nix at Oregon doesn't have that same pressure of being the Auburn quarterback in the SEC as, like, the former son of a quarterback that played for Auburn. The pressure isn't there. And you see what he is. He's kind of a touchdown machine at Oregon. And so I think Jalen Milroe's kind of that similar fashion where if he was like anywhere but Alabama, maybe, the other top schools like Ohio State, teams like that caliber where it's like you could still be a super, great athletic quarterback, but, not have that pressure of being like a national championship quarterback. He has to be that level. And he's just not that level. He's fine. But I think that he struggled mightily. Several just bad interceptions. Not like, throw a deep ball 50-50, your guy just didn't come down with it. No, they were just like, didn't see the safety, didn't see a linebacker just creeping around, and he just threw it to that zone, and it killed him. It kind of literally killed Alabama. And, I mean, what can I say? Like, that was... The Texas defense was also, like, all up in his face. Like, it's a credit to the Texas defense as much as it is Jalen Milroe's inability to be a great reading quarterback. I think they applied just enough pressure to get him off his spot enough, like, made him aware that Texas defenders were going to be around him. They got several sacks late in the game that were huge, and those interceptions were big. But then you flip the offense. Quinn Ewers might be my guy now. And it's not just because he beat Alabama, but Quinn Ewers showed a level of poise. He had like just such a good touch and feel for the ball on Saturday, and I mean he could, just turn into a pumpkin and not really do much else this season. Like that was as impressive as what he did against Alabama. But something about him is just like he feels like he has it as a passer. I feel like he has just a good feel for where he wants to go with the ball, where he wants to throw it. And I mean, I'm ready to bang the drum for Quinn Ewers to Atlanta because Desmond Ridder we'll get to him later, but not super impressive. But Quinn Ewers, like I said, impressed me big time. His couple of moonshot deep balls they threw to Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. Big throws, big boy throws that I loved. Felt like he had a really good command just like horizontally as well on the field as well as vertically. Like he just impressed me against an Alabama defense that I don't think is a joke. Like I think this is a good Alabama defense, one of the better ones they've had. And they super impressed me. And I think there's a very healthy mix of teams at the top, and they're like usual teams that we know and that are very good, like Florida State and Notre Dame, Ohio State. Like all those teams are really good and should normally be in the mix for the playoff. But this year it feels like they all do actually have a legit chance at making a run here. And you also have, Georgia, Michigan are also at the top there who've been in the playoff now a couple years in a row. Like those two teams are still around. Like Florida State, Texas now, Notre Dame, Ohio State's going to be around. Don't count out Alabama. Never do that. Never, ever do that. And then Pac-12 teams. What do you do with all them? USC, Oregon, Utah. I mean, those teams didn't have great weekends, Oregon and Utah. But, they're still super talented, uber talented, could win the Pac-12. Pac-12 has 8 teams in the top 25 in the last year. before they just implode. Insane. It's an insane story. The college football season, I think, is shaping up to be one of the most chaotic ones once we get into conference play. I cannot wait. I just cannot wait. So with all that being said, I figure we should move in. Those are my two things I want to touch on regarding, the happenings in football around the weekend. Let's go ahead and get into our preview/review of last week. This is some of the games, a little preview of what I'm going to be picking on here. But first, last week, I don't want to say we did bad, but, last week we just went 4-4-1. It's 500. That's fine. But we kind of got hosed on some, and now I feel a little bit silly about some. Kansas -2 against Illinois. That was easy money. I loved that. Purdue -1 versus Virginia Tech. We had a long lightning delay that made that a little sketchy, but of course we got that because Purdue's better. I scratched out the +1.5 I had for Utah because I thought it felt like it was done in bad faith. And so I put down the -7 Utah number, and they pushed that. So that's where the one is there. Ole Miss versus Tulane, the over. Michael Pratt wasn't playing for Tulane. I didn't know he was hurt, but we ate that one on the chin. Almost got it, too. That was the crazy part. Iowa versus Iowa State over 36.5. That was just a passion. That was a passion play there. Like, maybe we get this. Oregon -3.5. An insane way to cover that game where Oregon was probably going to lose that game until the very end. Like, not even cover that game also, but they managed to get like a pick 6 at the last minute to make that an easy cover. But good Lord, we had to fight for that one. Wisconsin versus Wazoo was like 3 points off, so that's just tough luck. Wazoo, impressive win over Wisconsin, by the way. Auburn -5 versus Cal. Maybe Cal isn't as bad as I thought they were. They've kind of improved. The quarterback, Jaden Ott, I believe it is pretty okay. And Auburn might just be bad as well. And then App State and UNC, that one went into overtime to cash that. That was an easy. That should have been my lock of the week, but that was easy. That was just too easy. But either way, those are last week's picks. This is this week's picks. I'll read them off as we go here. And we'll start here. Memphis versus Navy. I have the under here 47. I don't love either number, like the plus or like the +13 for Navy, -13 for Memphis. If I had to pick, I'd probably go Memphis, but I love the under here. Just Service Academy unders, they're always a play. Army, Navy, you can always count on them to get you that under because of just how slow they play, how much they don't score. If Memphis scores like 48 on them, we'll have to live with that. 48-0, that's just, once again, take that one on the chin. Next one I have on my list is Wake Forest. -14 is the number here against Old Dominion. At Old Dominion makes this a little bit scary, but I'm a Wake Forest fan. I think they're a good team. It's one of those, despite losing Sam Harmon and A.T. Perry, both like kind of their 1-2 connection they've had on offense, I think they've continued to score points in a good fashion. So, I think Wake Forest can cover the 14 here. I like them to do that at Old Dominion. It's tough because, like I said, on the road against Old Dominion, who I think is frisky, but I like them to get that. Next one I have on my list, Kansas State -3.5 here. I'll change that I have -4.5, so give me the extra point there. Kansas State ranked number 15. Going to Missouri is a little bit concerning. Just because, on the road SEC, Kansas State's kind of, I won't say expectations are high, but, they are the reigning Big 12 champs. That kind of gets forgotten about. But I do like Will Howard there, the quarterback for Kansas State. I don't know if Mizzou is cooking as much as people thought they'd be. I think they've started off a little bit slower. Because I think Mizzou, I don't say it was a dark horse to win the SEC, but they could get a bowl game like 7-8 wins maybe, and I don't think they're living up to that pace right now. So give me Kansas State -3.5. I can think they can win this by a touchdown. Next one I have, Alabama at South Florida. That's such a weird thing for Alabama to be on the road. This is Alabama -32 on my book. So I'm going to keep that one, not the -33 on the screen. Just because Alabama coming off a loss, I think that they're straight up. I think they're like 25-2 or something. 15-12 against the spread, I believe. Like the numbers against them, or the numbers with them coming off of a loss under Nick Saban are very good. So I could imagine them dominating USF here, just wire to wire. Next game I have on my book is Minnesota plus 7.5 at North Carolina. I don't think North Carolina is a good team. I think they're fine. They just haven't impressed me so far this season. It's one of those I expected them to just be better offensively with Drake May. They're just not as good as I think they normally are. The defense is better than I expected, so they should be able to at least shut down Minnesota. But a touchdown is a lot, and like I said, North Carolina hasn't played inspiring football, so give me Minnesota plus the points there. Not to win outright, but to at least be in the game by a touchdown. Next one I have JMU, James Madison plus 3 at Troy. It's plus 2.5 on the screen, whatever. I just like James Madison a lot. They've entered the Division I football, and they've been really good. They beat Virginia last week. I think this might be a tough one. This might be a trap line just because Troy at night, being on the road at night against City College, I think is tougher. But James Madison, I think, has the guys. I think they're good. They haven't covered a spread yet this year. I think that can change with the win outright on Saturday night. Next game I have what do they call this? Backyard brawl? Either way, rivalry between Pittsburgh at West Virginia. Exciting game last year. I had Pitt. They managed to win that one barely for me. That was an incredible game to watch. It's beautifully ugly, if that's a way to describe this rivalry. Like last year it was. This year I think it'll be similar. And it says West Virginia -3. That's changed on me, but I had West Virginia +1 versus Pitt. Locked that one in. Because I do think West Virginia will win this game. Pittsburgh hasn't inspired me. Hasn't been, a great, start to the season for a program that's been relatively okay the past couple seasons. Phil Jurkovich is just maybe not a good quarterback in college, but Pitt doesn't know that yet. But yeah, give me West Virginia there. Next one I have on my book is TCU at Houston. I have the under 64.5. This one it's one of those you should expect a big over party. Like maybe they all do just go crazy. But I don't think either team is very good. TCU hasn't inspired me a ton, to look at them favoritively since that Colorado game. Houston hasn't been sharp really. I don't know. Just either team, both in the Big 12. This is their first Big 12 matchup here, but don't inspire a ton of confidence in me to have great offenses like they normally do. So give me that under 64.5. Next one, Purdue +2.5 versus Syracuse. It's at Purdue, so I'm curious why we're giving so much love to Syracuse. Maybe it's because the quarterback's experienced, but Purdue did me right last week with Virginia Tech. I'm gonna go with them this time to win outright against Syracuse. I don't. It's one of those I just don't really believe in Syracuse to be that team, and yeah, I like Purdue in this matchup. Then I have Tulane at Southern Miss -12.5. It's 13 on the screen here. Just Southern Miss is a good team. I don't doubt that, but Tulane hopefully gets Michael Pratt back. If he's not back, I still feel confident in the backup quarterback. He seems to be competent kid. Played well against Ole Miss. Had them winning that game for a little bit. Willie Fritz is a good coach. I like Tulane to win this, even against Frank Gore Jr. on Southern Miss. And then the last game I have my eyes on, Virginia Tech at Rutgers. I have Virginia Tech +7 here. Looks like the public loves Rutgers. I don't love Rutgers. I don't think I'll ever really love Rutgers. So, I'm going to go with the Hokies here. I think that their quarterback is better than what he was last year. I think Virginia Tech's better than what I thought they were last year. I think they're just, slowly improving. They're not great, don't get me wrong, but I think that they're better than Rutgers, who just, I don't know. Rutgers doesn't inspire me in this game. +7 is a big number for them to cover, and relying on a team like Rutgers to cover 7 points feels like a lot. So give me Virginia Tech +7 here. And I'm not gonna lie, I love this line. I love the bets that I have this week. I feel really good about it. This week isn't a great week for college football. Next week, week 4, college football is going to be a big one. There's so many ranked matchups, a lot of Pac-12 kicking off. Super excited for that, super pumped for that. But this week I feel like has some underrated matchups and could get a little hectic by the time we get to the 7 o'clock slate. But I love these bets I have in, man. I'm really excited to see how these unfold. Because like I said, last week, not a great week for your boy, but that's okay. It's okay. We bounce back. So moving on, talking about some NFL football here before we head out. I don't have any. I mean, obviously, I'll talk about my thoughts on some of these teams as we go from the past week. The Chiefs was the big one. Chiefs-Lions was the big one I wanted to talk about since, it's been a while since that happened. But either way, we'll just go ahead and hit right into it. Minnesota at Philadelphia tonight. Tonight we have that happening. Philadelphia's down 3 players. I think Minnesota's down 1. But I mean, I fully expect Philadelphia to win this game. It's one of those, started off rough against the Patriots, but I think the Patriots are also a good team. I think the Patriots defense is really solid, and Philly offense ran into a tough defense. That's really all it comes down to. And Minnesota losing to the Buccaneers, that's a really, really ugly start for Minnesota, for a team that's was was labeled a fraud last year, and definitely was a fraud because they lost to the Giants. Losing that opening game to Baker Mayfield is a tough look, and I don't think they'll be any better because they also got blown out by Philadelphia last year. So tough one there for Philadelphia. I can't see them winning. Green Bay at Atlanta. Green Bay really impressed me. I didn't think that the Bears would. I don't know if I said the Bears would win or not, but I thought that game was going to be super interesting last week, and it flat out wasn't because Green Bay ran away with it by the third quarter. I mean, Jordan Love looked legit. Aaron Jones was a monster. He had a hamstring issue, so we'll see how he goes this week. But, Green Bay impressed me last week, and the NFC North might just be tortured because Green Bay keeps finding quarterbacks that are just competent. So, tough for Green Bay. They go on the road to Atlanta, who also had a good win against Carolina. The defense showed out. The offense, left some things to be desired, but obviously Bijan Robinson had some great plays. Tyler Algier looked really good. Kyle Pitts had a big catch. I mean, that's really the only thing that he did all day. The only thing the passing game did all day. But things looked good, and they won the game. And it was against the Panthers, who aren't very good. But you do what do what you work with. It's tough, but I think this will be an entertaining game. And it wouldn't shock me if Atlanta just laid an egg here. That's just feels very Atlanta-esque, but we'll see how that plays out. Vegas at Buffalo. This feels like a big bounce-back spot for Buffalo. Obviously, they had a devastating loss against not the Raiders. They're playing the Raiders. The Jets. They had a devastating loss to the Jets, and the Jets feel. It's crazy. The Bills lost that game, and Josh Allen looked terrible, absolutely atrocious. But even then, the Jets were still losers in that because Aaron Rodgers' Achilles went kapooey. So that's kind of tough for them, but we'll see how, the teams bounce back. We'll see what happens. This is a big spot because, like I said, the Raiders aren't a good team. Them beating the Broncos is not super impressive because, the Broncos' offense still kind of stinks. Even with Sean Payton, they kind of stink. But, regardless, I think the Raiders can compete in this. I actually like them to cover the +8.5. But the Bills should get a bounce-back spot here, especially at home. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Cincinnati started off the season terribly. Joe Burrow didn't eclipse 100 yards after being the most paid quarterback in the league. Now that's really tough just because I like him a lot. But, Cincinnati tends to play Baltimore very well. Jamar Chase kind of tortures the Baltimore secondary. And the Raiders, the Ravens, I don't think looked great either on Sunday. They beat the Texans, but, that's not a big accomplishment. But they were sloppy with the ball in that second half, and I mean, Zay Flowers was like really the big, inspiring part of that win, but they also suffered some bad injuries with an Achilles with J.K. Dobbins, and I believe Marcus Williams had a torn pec. Like, it was a rough injury luck, once again for the Ravens, who kind of just deal with that a lot now. And Cincinnati, like I said, just got dominated by the Browns. So I curious to see how this game unfolds. I think this will be a bounce back spot for Cincy. Like I said, I think their wide receivers kind of handle Baltimore very well. I think it's just a bad matchup for them. So give me Cincy there. I kind of previewed it. Seattle at Detroit. Seattle laid a big egg on Sunday as well. Coming into the season, big expectations. Geno Smith got paid against the Rams, who should be in a rebuilding year. And they just got flat out dominated in that second half. It was just Matthew Stafford picking them apart with Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua, respectfully, the rookie from BYU. But good Lord, he just kind of just dominated them like he was Mike Evans. He was a 10-year vet or something. But regardless, I mean, Seahawks hoping to bounce back here against Detroit. This was an incredible game last year. It was like 45-42. But is that the same Seattle team coming to Detroit? I don't know. I don't think that's the same Detroit defense that Seattle played last week. So I think this will, I won't say this will be a test for Detroit, but I think this will be another indicator. It's like, is this the same old Detroit? Are they going to lose this one after winning that big one last week? We'll see, but I think they will. Seattle, just a PU game from them last week. Indianapolis at Houston. I talk about this game in LK League Notes. That's your spoiler there, preview. Rookie versus rookie. I'm always excited to see rookie quarterbacks, despite how bad they are. It always makes me a little bit pumped up to see this one, and especially in a divisional matchup, I think adds a level of intrigue to it. Read more at lksportstalk.com. Wink, wink. Once again, another game that might be on that. Kansas City at Jacksonville. Big week for Kansas City. If they start off 0-2, don't push the panic button, but definitely would like to win that game. So Jacksonville, another one as well, where it's like, you didn't look great against the Colts. Colts, I think, played up to Jacksonville more than Jacksonville played down to the Colts. There's some bonehead plays from the Jaguars, who are still young. So, I mean, another game to see how much they've matured, I think, over the offseason. Trevor Lawrence had incredible throws. We'll see how the Jags do in that one, but plus 3.5 is a good number, especially at home for Jacksonville. Chicago and Tampa Bay. Once again, surprising team Tampa Bay. They're a favorite in this matchup against the Bears, and I can't blame them. I mean, I think the Bears will win this game. It feels like they'll kind of correct, the Bears will, and let Justin Fields run a little bit more design stuff maybe. And just seeing Baker succeed feels weird right now. So the chip on his shoulder is huge. Maybe that's why he's winning so much. But either way, I like the Bears to win that game, especially after a really bad week one showing. Chargers at Tennessee. This was funny because Ryan Tannehill called the Chargers San Diego. So, I mean, that's just pretty funny. But I don't know. I mean, Tennessee looked sluggish, but they were still competing with the Saints. It feels like a very Mike Vrabel type of happening. Just competing till the end, but ultimately losing. Like, what was it, 18-15 or 18-16 game? Like, hooky. Chargers lost in a heartbreaking shootout. So, it feels like it could be a tough one for the Chargers just because they have to travel across coast, and it'll be 1 o'clock Eastern time and 10 o'clock Pacific time. So, that's a little tough, but I like the Chargers to win this. I think they're just a better team. But I don't know if they're more disciplined. Giants at Arizona. That's a snooze fest, respectfully. Arizona's competed hard last week, but ended up losing to the Commanders somehow, and the Giants got obliterated last week. So I'm okay on that one. And then we get to more towards the end here, the afternoon slate. That was the afternoon slate, the Cardinals and Giants, but Rams, San Francisco. I think this would actually be a better game than most people think, just because, I mean, San Francisco is a dominant team, destroyed the Steelers. Sorry for the bet of the week, by the way. The LK's best bet of the week there in the NFL. Absolute stinker because the Steelers stink. But the 49ers coming back to play the Rams, I think this could just be a very good game. I talked about in LK League Notes. Make sure to check it out there. And the Jets-Dallas, same thing. Check out LK League Notes. Wink, wink. shameless plugs all around on this Coach's Corner. But, I mean, Zach Wilson gets the start now. Gets his, I don't want to say second chance, but gets another chance here to prove what he's worth against Dallas. Good Dallas defense will be especially tough for him. Trayvon Diggs might have a field day, man. Ugh. Washington and Denver is a stinker. I mean, respectfully to Sam Howell, who looked okay. Not great, not bad. Going on the road against Denver, a Denver team that only scored 16 points. Once again, very disappointing offensive showing, even with Sean Payton. Turns out they're not great. Miami at New England's the Sunday night game. New England will probably get stomped here just because, Tua, that Tyreek Hill. I don't know, maybe New England has an answer. Like I said, the New England defense is legit. So, it'll really be the battle of Miami's offense and New England's defense. So, we'll see how that pans out. Then New Orleans at Carolina. I think New Orleans will win that one just because Bryce Young is not ready yet. I think that was apparent against the Falcons on Sunday. But I think this could be a close game. I'd love to see some Bryce Young magic, see what he does. And then we finish off Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Impressive win from Cleveland. Like I said, shut down Cincinnati. Pittsburgh, I don't know what the opposite of impressive is. Unimpressive? Oh, yeah, I guess so. Super uninspiring, unimpressive performance from Pittsburgh. And Deontay Johnson, the receiver, down a couple of weeks with a hamstring. So, not great news there for Pittsburgh, but I think Cleveland will win this. This might be the Deshaun Watson coming out party. Very nasty, very scary for people in the Cleveland area. But regardless, I think Cleveland gets a win here against Pittsburgh. So, okay. That's your weekend preview. That's your week 2 preview. We talked about last week, obviously. Feel good about my college football bets. Feel good about this upcoming weekend of the NFL. Not great matchups, but I think intriguing matchups that at least will make us think and want to watch these games a little bit, like just to see certain players, certain trends that we might like. Is Denver always going to score under 16 points? Probably, but we'll see it happen against the Commanders on Sunday for sure. So, with all that being said, I'm your host, Coach VAR. Make sure you check out the pod on wherever you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Check out the YouTube channel. Make sure to share, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Until next time, goodbye.